All right, let's begin by talking about everything from last week with these triads. Not only because I always like to begin by reviewing the previous week, but especially today because we're building off of that directly. So, what are your thoughts? Which parts were easy? Which parts were hard? What'd you think?
I think it wasn't necessarily hard, it was just really time intensive. Because there's like so many variables in it that you have to go and check.
Hmm. Did you feel that it got faster? I mean, of course, over the course of a month or 2 months, you'll get really fast at it. But over the course of the exercises, did it seem faster by the end?
Yeah.
That's good. Caleb or Austin, any thoughts that either of you had on the triads?
I thought I knew a lot more than I thought I would, but I realized when I told to find a certain one, I overthought it more. So once I just kind of went with it, it was fast.
Okay, Austin, any thoughts?
I thought it was overall pretty straightforward, building on what we've worked on before.
Okay, let's do a little bit of review. So, how would you spell an E minor triad?
An EGB.
E G B. Thank you. Let's actually pull my keyboard up. Okay. Thank you, Kylie. Let's go to Caleb. How would you spell a B triad?
I'm only thinking of B minor.
Let's do B minor then. How would you spell a B minor triad? It's funny you said that. I was actually thinking I should do B minor instead. And so I guess we're on the same wavelength.
uh, B, D, and F.
Austin, Kylie, is that right?
It'd be an F sharp.
There you go.
That's what it was.
So,
Yes.
Kylie, which chord was this?
Um, B diminished.
Right. Still has the minor third, but that fifth is down there as well. Okay, so we have B minor as B, D, and F sharp. Okay, Austin, how would you spell an F sharp major triad?
Would it be F sharp, then A sharp, and C sharp?
Is that right? Everyone
No.
else?
Would it be D and not the C sharp? No. I misheard it the first time.
What do you think, Caleb? Is that right?
What was the triad again?
F sharp major.
Major.
Hi, Samuel.
Um, I'm not sure on this one.
Austin's guess was F sharp, A sharp, C sharp. So, Samuel, is that correct? Is F sharp, A sharp, C sharp an F major triad?
Yes.
Yes, that is correct. So we had B minor, followed by F sharp major. Okay, Kylie, can you please spell for us an A major triad?
You said my name, right?
Yes, A major, please.
A major. Um, So it'd start out with A, C sharp, E.
Yep. So we had B minor, F sharp, A. Okay. And Austin, can you please spell for us an E major triad?
Would that be E, G sharp, B?
Yep. Okay. And then Caleb, will you please spell a G major triad?
Is that a G, B, and D, and then oh,
It's done. It's already there.
that all?
Yep.
I thought one was sharp. Okay,
Nope.
that's all.
Yep. You got it. Okay, Samuel, can you please spell for us a D major triad?
Yeah, that would be D, F sharp, A.
That's right. Okay, so going through these chords we talked through: B minor, F sharp major, A major, E major, G major, D major. Kylie, can you? We've all done this one, but if you remember from earlier, or just can you redo it? E minor, please.
E minor. Start with an E, G, and then a B.
Perfect. And then Austin, can you please remind us of your answer from earlier? F sharp major.
That was F sharp, A sharp, C sharp.
Perfect. Okay, so all 8 of those chords, one of which is repeated. And what song is this?
Hotel California.
Hotel California. So you look it up, get the chords, and now going through the process that we just talked through together, you figure out what the chords are and you put onto your piano or your guitar or whatever, your banjo, your mandolin, your saxophone trio. As each of you, I'm going to go down the list, and in my boxes, Kylie's on top. So we'll start with Kylie, and I'll just go down in this particular order. But can you please tell the rest of us the process that you're using? Are you thinking of the major scale? Are you counting up by half steps, +4, +3 for major? Are you trying to think of a major third stacked on top of a minor third? There are a lot of ways that you can get the right answer for these. If you could please each tell us which of those processes you tend to use all the time, or if you're using a few, which one do you use most of the time? And again, we'll start with Kylie.
I kind of used a combination of the major and minor third with the like chord formulas that you taught us. So I thought of like, oh, a major triad is a major, like the root and then a major third and then a minor third. And that's kind of the same thing as the chord formulas, you know, the root +4 +3. So like a combination of both of those.
Okay, thank you. Austin, can you tell us which one you used?
I use the +4, +3 thing. For every chord, I pretty much like figure out what the major is and then like change it from there to get the answer.
Oh, see, I should have mentioned that. That's another approach is just know one chord and then know how to alter it to get the other chord you need. Okay, Caleb.
I tend to do the +4, +3, but with how my mind works, I know the major key signature is the best. So I kind of start there just to find my sharps and flats.
Nice. And in addition to using a combination of these approaches to get to your answer, you can also use any one approach, but then use the others to confirm your answer. To say, okay, using a major third plus a minor third, I get these notes. and then look at your A flat major key signature and confirm that this is indeed 1, 3, 5, something like that. And Samuel, can you tell us your approach?
For the major and minor chords, I have most of them memorized because I play piano somewhat. So yeah, most of it is just memorization, and then if it's like augmented or diminished, then I do what Austin does. I like start with the major and then change the notes as I need.
Awesome. And what he mentioned just now about being memorized, like that's good. That's what we want. I do not hope for any of you that 2 years from now you're just really fast at doing these little equations. I hope that you just know that this is C sharp minor. You don't have to think about it. When I learned these chords, the way I learned it, and like I guess I would have been probably in 6th grade or something. I had a little Casio keyboard that I got for Christmas, just one of these little like 70 key things. Um, and it had this function where if you would play a note, it would change it into a chord. But it was really random in how it would change it because sometimes it would go major and sometimes it would go minor. For example, for whatever reason, C sharp minor was always in this inversion. And if you played just a C sharp, it would make it minor. But if you played just a B, it would make it major. So for the first year of my learning these chords without any formal instruction on the topic, I just assumed C sharp was a minor chord and B was a major chord. And this is the order that B is always F sharp, B, D sharp. And it was only later that I learned that there's a logic to building these. It's the same thing with guitar. So how many of you play guitar? I see a couple hands up. Let me scroll down. Keep your hands up if you play guitar. Oh, what a beautiful day in Knoxville. You can see Samuel's background behind him. Cool. Okay, so for guitar, I don't know about all of you, but I just learned, I don't have a guitar out right now, but like this is a C chord. Why? I don't know. This is just a C chord. It wasn't until much later that I started asking the why questions, but it's the same thing. What I want for each of you is to just get to the point where you know what these chords are, and the process to figure them out is secondary to just being able to actually do them. Okay, awesome. Well, today we are moving forward with seventh chords. So a seventh chord is a 4-note chord, and that's always confusing to people. Like, why isn't it called a fourth chord? So can any of you speculate, unless you actually know the answer, in which case you can just share it with us? Why is a chord with 4 notes called a seventh chord?
Because the fourth note is usually the seventh,
Seventh of what?
the key.
Yeah, exactly. So you have the first, third, fifth. That's a triad. If you add the seventh, that makes it a seventh chord. Now, the book gives you 5 different types of seventh chord qualities. Again, quality just means major, minor, diminished, augmented. But really, the first 3, I think, are the big ones. So in the key of C, we have a major 7, a minor 7, and a dominant 7. Dominant 7 is usually just a 7. So if you're ever looking at music and it says C7, it means C dominant 7. If you want someone to play C major 7 or C minor 7, you have to actually specify major or minor, either capital M for major or MAJ or lowercase m for minor or MIN. You'll also see the abbreviations of a triangle for major and a minus for minor. So this is called a C major 7 because it has the 7th from the major scale. The third, well, it has the first, third, fifth, and 7th. All 4 of them are from the major scale. So that's C major 7. If I were to play G major 7, it has the first, third, fifth, and 7th from the major scale as well. If I were to play C minor 7, it's the first, third, fifth, and 7th from the natural minor scale. Or if I were to play A flat minor 7, it's the first, third, and fifth from the A flat natural minor scale. A major 7, the first, third, fifth, and 7th from a major scale. So on A, how would you spell an A major 7 chord?
A, C sharp, E, and G sharp.
Yep. Okay, let's go down to F. How would you spell an F minor 7 chord? It's the first, third, fifth, and 7th from an F natural minor scale.
F, A flat. Wait, you said
Good so
F.
far.
F, A flat, C, E flat.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so now let's talk about dominant seventh, or some usually just called seventh. A dominant seventh pulls the third from a major scale, but the seventh from a minor scale. For that reason, and I really don't like using this term, there's nothing against it. It's just my musical background. This term doesn't come up, but a lot of people call it a major minor seventh because it's a major chord with a minor seventh on top. But its official name is a dominant seventh. I will explain why, but I'd be curious to know if any of you have a guess as to why it's called a dominant seven based on the notes that make it up. I'll give you a clue. It's called a dominant seventh for a reason. No one knows?
Is it the seventh of the dominant?
Yes. Thank you very much. Austin's got it. Everyone give Austin a round of applause. Golf claps. Perfect. Thank you. Yes, exactly. It's the seventh based off of the dominant. And Kylie, what is the dominant? Which number of the scale?
The 7.
Not the seventh. That would be the subtonic or the leading tone.
Is it
What about,
the
okay, Caleb's got it.
It's the fifth, right?
Yes, he stole it from you, Kylie. Yes, the dominant is the fifth. So if we take the first 6 triads of a major scale, remember they're the major and minor ones. The seventh is diminished, so that's different. We'll put seventh away and we'll come back to it later. But if we look at the first 6 chords, this is review from last week. Remember, it was major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, capital I, lowercase I, lowercase I, capital IV, capital V, lowercase VI. So major, minor, minor, major, major, minor. If we add a diatonic seventh, and by diatonic, I just mean the seventh of whatever it should be if we stay within the C major scale, we get a major chord, so a major 7, a minor 7, a minor 7, a major 7. So far, the 7th chord name matches the triad name perfectly. But this one's different because in a major 7, because you have the leading tone, the way you can tell it's a major 7 if you're trying to figure it out is major 7, the 7th is just a half step away from the root. So right there, if it's a half step away, it's a major 7. And sure enough, this B is only a half step from the C. Or if I go to F, the 4th, this 7 is only a half step from F. But on G, it's a whole step from the root. From the root of G, it's a whole step away. So that's how you know it's a dominant. It also has this kind of bluesier sound to it. If I were to play something like, there's just some kind of dissonant quality there. That's where this term comes from. It's the only one of the 6 like that, because if you go to the next one, A minor, sure enough, we have another regular minor 7th. So it's called a dominant 7th because it only naturally occurs when built on the 5th scale degree, when built on the dominant. Now, can you only use it as the 5th? Of course not. I'm sure you've all heard plenty of songs where every chord is a 7th chord, every chord is a dominant chord, but that's where it comes from. It comes from this naturally occurring place at the 5th. So the way you'll spell that, there are 2 ways to think about it. Well, there are many ways, and we'll get into those in another couple minutes. But 2 of the primary ways would be to just think I have a major triad, and then the 7th is a whole step below the root. So, and we'll get to the next one after that. So if we were to go to a D chord, remember, if you're spelling this, it would be a D major triad, and then the 7th is a whole step below the root. So, Samuel, how would I spell a D7 chord?
D, F sharp, A, and C.
And C. Yeah, exactly. And then just really quickly, we'll address the seventh in this key of C major. That's a diminished one. We'll talk about diminished chords more in a bit, but let's focus on these first three: major 7, minor 7, and dominant 7, or just 7. So the minor 7 is considered the most mellow. And this is all subjective. This is someone's personal opinion, but there's supposedly some kind of relaxing quality about this. Dominant 7 has a little more tension, and major 7 also has a certain tension to it. So to illustrate that a little bit, I'm just going to play through some chords in C major, and I think you'll notice that if I end on this chord, it sounds okay, but if I end on the dominant, there's that tension that it wants to resolve. Anyway, I'll just play a little bit. So if I just end here, it doesn't exactly sound over, but it doesn't sound bad. However, if I end up here, that's just sort of a funny place to end. You guys sort of hear that?
Yeah.
Now, I'll take a quick tangent and say this is all conditioning. There's nothing fundamentally incomplete about this chord. The reason why we have this perception is our whole lives we've heard this chord and it never stops there. It always goes to, just pointing that out. Anyway, here are the reasons now that those chords, dominant 7s, but also major 7s, just have this kind of unstable quality that wants to resolve. Who can remind us what a tritone is?
I think it's an augmented fourth or diminished fifth.
Right. And we talked about the modes a few weeks ago. We had Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. If you remember from the lecture, Locrian was the one that centuries ago composers were not allowed to use. You'd be burned at the stake if you wrote in Locrian mode. Do any of you remember why?
It's of the devil.
It's of the devil. What about it makes it of the devil? What did the devil do to this scale?
The dissonance of it.
The dissonance, specifically that all the other modes, starting on any other note, the first and the fifth is a perfect fifth. But on this one, the fifth is a tritone. It's a diminished fifth. And you can't have a tritone as the perfect fifth because the dominant is such an important part of any key. So the fact that the tritone is so dissonant that it meant composers weren't even allowed to use this mode, the Locrian mode, that's part of what makes the seventh chord so dissonant. It has a tritone built in the middle of it. None of the other chords have that. If you look at the C major 7, C to G is a fifth, E to B is another fifth. So it's just 2/5 separated by a major third. Does that make sense? That this is a fifth, go up a major third to E, that's a fifth. Put them together, you just get 2/5. That's very harmonious. Same thing with the minor 7. You have the fifth here and the fifth there, and they're separated by a minor third, but it's still just fifths. Whereas the dominant chord, you have a perfect fifth and a diminished fifth. That's why there's this certain bluesy dissonant quality here. So that's why in general music practices, you shouldn't end a chord on a dominant seventh chord. But what about the major 7? This one's not as bad, but the reason people still don't like to end with it is it because it has this leading tone, which is only a half step away from the root. And some people still think that just sounds incomplete. So if someone's playing a song that goes D minor 7, G7, C major 7, and it just repeats a bunch of times, when they want to end the song, they might end it just a little bit differently, just so it doesn't have that leading tone that wants to ascend. Any questions about that stuff so far, or observations or feedback? Is this all ridiculous? Again, it's not like math. With math, no one decided 2 plus 2 is 4. It just is. If I have 2 apples in this hand and 2 apples in this hand, I have 4 apples. That's just a fact, a law of the universe. There's no law that says you can't use a C major 7. Someone just decided it, or rather cultural practices over hundreds of years determined that didn't sound good. But what do you all think? Is that legitimate? Do those chords not sound very good to end on? Or should we explore those options more?
Screw the Western chromatic system.
There you go. Fight the power. Anarchy in the UK. Any other opinions?
It makes me interested to like see if this is the same in all cultures. Like studying music from other places, does everywhere follow this like pattern? You know?
Yeah, well, I can give you a quick answer on it. And that is kind of not the best answer, but there are certain aspects. There are 2 intervals that are present in every culture that's ever been studied. Like some cultures don't have what we would call a minor sixth. That's just not in there. But every culture has an octave. And by an octave, I mean if you were to go to a culture and listen to men and women singing together, almost always the men sing an octave lower than the women. Including in America. And obviously, we don't even know we're doing it a lot of the time. If I were to have you guys all sing something, and we did this in one of our first meetings, Kylie sang it in one octave and everyone else sang it down. You just naturally go to these octaves. The other one is the fifth. The fifth is present in basically every culture. If you listen to, for example, Indian classical music, like a tempura, or Middle Eastern music, or any European nation, the nations within Africa that have harmonic music, not just rhythmic music, they have the fifth. So something about the fifth and something about the octave make those intervals present in all the cultures. But things like the leading tone, you don't necessarily get that. In fact, the primary scale of the Middle East, or one of them, is actually that's pretty far removed from a major scale. Something like that. So another little tangent, but no, they are there are some intervals that are pretty much present in every culture and others that are specific to American music. I'm looking to the next song here. We have this Ave Maria. And then EG. So let's look at some of these chords. Can you all open up to this for me, please? This is it's on page 121 of the newer of the second edition, and probably within a page or so in the first edition.
You said Ave Maria.
Yes.
Okay, that's on page 113 of the old.
113. Okay, thank you. Wow, they've really separated for how close they started off. So 113, it sounds like in the first edition. And does yours begin in the key of F with 1 flat, and it says andante con moto?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that first chord there. Ignore the markings below. They're not right. In fact, they're wrong a lot of the time because they're referring to something different. But we have F A C F A. What chord is that spelling?
F major.
F major. Thank you. The next chord there we have F G D G B. I'll tell you right off the bat, this is a seventh chord, but it's not in the right order. Even though F is the lowest note, it's not an F note. So my question for you is, what is that chord? F, G, D, G, B. As you're figuring this out, I'm going to give you a trick right now that I want you to always use when you're trying to figure out these chords. If you ever see notes that are right next to each other, those are probably the seventh and the tonic, because we use what's called tertiary harmony. Everything's built on thirds. All the chords we've talked about have been play a note, skip a note. So this is a third, and this is a third, and this is a third. Not all music is like that. There's some really interesting French music that's built on fourths. That's a pretty different sound. But our music is built on thirds. So, anyway, looking at this music, you will find that most of the notes, if put in order, are a third apart from each other. But two of the notes are going to be a second apart from each other. Could be a major second, could be a minor second, but it will be a second. So, if you can find those two notes, the top note, that's the name of the chord. Then you figure out the quality of the chord based on the other notes. So, within these notes, F, G, D, G, B, where is this second relationship?
It's a major second
Where?
between F and G.
Yep. So you take the top note. So that means this is some kind of G chord. So right away, I can take this F below it and move it up for the purposes of figuring out the chord. So it's a G chord. So now we have to figure out, and we're only going to limit it to major, minor, and dominant at this point. What kind of G chord is it? Is it a G major 7? Is it a G minor 7? Or is it a G dominant 7? Now, Samuel already pointed out that it's a major second relationship. It's a whole step. So that eliminates one of the possibilities. Which one can't it be at this point if there's a whole step between the seventh and the tonic?
The major 7?
Yeah, it can't be major 7 because remember, the major 7 is the one with the leading tone. So we know that this chord is either dominant or a minor 7. Well, from that point, it's as simple as, well, does that third come from the major scale or the minor scale? So this has a B natural. Does B natural come from the G major scale or the G minor scale?
Since this is in the key of
We're going to
F,
get to that. But
okay.
first,
Sorry,
yeah,
my-
we're coming back to that. But first, this chord, G, D, F, B, what chord is that? Does the B natural come from the major scale or the minor scale?
The G major scale.
G major scale. Okay. Now, thank you, Austin. Samuel, can you go ahead and bring everyone else up to date on what you were about to say?
it's F. It's F major. It's the key of F major, so the B would actually be flat.
Yes. So looking at the key signature, that changes just that one note. But because that note is part of the chord, it changes the chord. So the way we were looking at a moment ago, it was a G dominant chord. But now with the B flat in there, it's a different quality. So what is the quality with the B flat added? Some tips to figure it out. It's still a whole step relationship between the seventh and the one, between the seventh and the tonic, the F and the G. So that still tells us it cannot be major 7. So it's still either dominant 7 or minor 7. So now the question is, does that third come from the G minor scale or the G major scale?
Small m.
Small m. It is a G minor chord. Right. Okay, so I'm going to go to the iPad now. And let's talk about some ways you can figure these out. Let's start with the major 7. Well, option number 1 Someone please call out a note name that we'll figure out a major 7 chord for.
A flat.
A flat. Okay, so if you want to figure out an A flat major 7 chord, a few things you can do. Number one, for those of you who are pretty familiar with the triads at this point, just start with the A flat triad. And then for major 7, which can look like that, or can look like that, or can look like this, or any combination of those. Major 7, the seventh is always a half step lower. So it's a half step lower than A flat.
G.
G, yeah. So that's one way to figure it out. Another way is to imagine the notes on a staff. And then put the appropriate key signature on. You'll see that A is flat, C is not, E is flat, G is not. Or, going with the chord formulas, root plus 4 plus 3 plus 4. The root is A flat, plus 3, plus 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 would give us C, plus 3, 1, 2, 3 would give us E flat, and plus 4 more would give us G. So any of those options would give you the correct note. So let's try it out a little bit. Who prefers starting with the major triad and then adding the seventh, or who at least wants to? I guess you haven't had enough practice to know which one you prefer, but who wants to try an example of that?
Put me in.
Okay, Austin. Let's say we're going for D. So first off, what are the notes of a D triad? Just a D major chord.
That would be D, F sharp, A.
Mm-hmm. And now to add a major 7, again, it's a half step below the root. So what's a half step below D?
C sharp.
C sharp. Perfect. That's one way to do it. All right, let's do another one. Someone different. Who would like to try figuring this out based on the notes on the staff?
Why not?
Okay. Was that Caleb?
Yeah.
Okay. Why not? Very excited. So let's do B this time. So we have B, D, F, A. Again, at this point, I'm just stacking thirds. That's all I'm doing, stacking thirds until I have 4 notes. And then I throw the key signature on F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp. So what is B? Is it natural or sharp?
Natural.
Natural. What is D?
D is sharp.
D sharp. What is F?
Sharp.
And A.
Sharp.
Mm-hmm. And someone else to do the formulas version. Getting to slim pickings now.
I'll do it.
Okay. So the chord formula for a major 7 chord is R plus 4 plus 3 plus 4. So could you please apply that to, let's do E. So what is 4 steps or 4 notes higher than E?
G sharp.
And what is 3 steps higher than G sharp?
B.
And what is 4 half steps higher than B?
D sharp.
D sharp. Perfect. Yep. Okay, so that's major 7. Now let's go through that same process with minor 7. Now, if we were to relate this back to the major scale, which is what I suggested you do, and some of you feel that that's what works best for you, let's figure out C. We're figuring out C minor 7. So C minor 7 or C minor 7, any of those. So we start with C. So let's relate this to a C major triad. So what are the notes of a C major triad?
C, E, G.
C, E, G. And now how do I make that into a minor triad?
Lower the E a half step, so
Yep.
E flat.
Lower the third. And now for minor seventh chords and for dominant seventh chords, the seventh is a whole step lower. So what's a whole step lower than C?
B flat.
Perfect. Okay. Now let's do one based off of the staff. This time we'll go for G. And I'll write it out a little bit differently each time so you can get used to seeing all of them. So again, start with your staff. Stack your thirds beginning on G. And then put in the key signature for G minor. So what is the key signature for G minor?
B flat and E flat.
Thank you. Okay, so what are the notes? Anyone can just call this out of the notes of the chord. What are the notes of the chord based on the key signature?
G, B flat, D, F.
You got it. G, B flat, D, and F. And lastly, we'll use the chord formulas for a minor 7. It's R plus 3 plus 4 plus 3. So let's do this one on, let's make it a little bit more challenging. Go for C sharp minor 7. So the root is C sharp. What's 3 notes higher than C sharp?
E.
Yep. And what is it? 4 notes higher than E?
G sharp.
And 3 notes higher than G sharp.
B.
Yep. You got it. Perfect. And lastly, let's do dominant 7. So dominant 7, it's not that it's different, but it can be thought of differently. I guess we could say the added version of this is if you're trying to figure it out. Actually, I'll get to that on the second one. We'll do the first one normal. Okay, so the first one, let's just say A again, A7. This one only has one way of writing it. Like you could see DOM for dominant, but I don't think you ever actually will. It's just always going to be only the number 7. So start with the major triad. So can someone please call out how you would spell an A major triad?
A, C sharp, E.
Thank you. And the dominant chords are just like the minor 7, have a seventh that is a whole step lower than the root. So what's a whole step lower than A?
G.
G. Perfect. Okay, so now this last one, figuring it out against the staff, this is where you kind of have to add an extra layer because it's called dominant seventh because as we talked about earlier, it's built off of the 5th. So this one's going to be tricky. You probably won't want to use this as your way of figuring it out, but we'll still go through it. Let's figure out F7. So when you're writing your notes on the staff, you still start with, stacked thirds beginning on F, but you don't put the key signature for F. You put the key signature that belongs to the key where F is the dominant. So F is the perfect 5th of what note or what key?
B flat.
Perfect. You figured that out very quickly. How did you get to it so fast?
Because I have the chord memorized.
Perfect. That's the best way to do it. And all of this is just a means to an end. You all want to get to the point where it's just memorized and you can think of it automatically. These are just tools to get you to that point. So memorizing it, obviously that's the fastest. Another way you can think about it is you can go down 7 steps or up 5. Either one would get you there. But that's the point, right? Which key is F the 5th of? And it's B flat. So you put the key signature for B flat, which is anyone?
B
U
flat and E
flat.
flat.
B flat, E flat. Okay, so what are the notes of an F7 chord?
F A C E flat.
F, A, C, E flat. And the last method, formulas. The formula for this one is going to be R plus 4 plus 3 plus 3. And hopefully all of you saw the PDF that's attached on our course site under week 5 for the triads. In the back of that, not the very back, but near the end, you have the formulas listed for all of these chords that we're talking about today. So you can go back to that as a resource. Let's do, I don't know, let's get crazy again. Let's do A flat. So using this formula, can someone please spell for us an A flat 7 chord?
That's A flat, C, E flat, and G.
Yep, that's right. Now for the diminished chords. We'll talk about those quickly before we end. I really wanted to focus on these three because these are the main ones you'll see, but of course you will encounter the diminished chords. So just like the dominant chord is named because it only naturally appears in one place, the fifth, the diminished chord only naturally appears at the seventh of a major key. So let me pull the keyboard back up. There it is. So if you remember from last week, major chords are a major third stacked with a minor third on top, and minor chords are the opposite. It's a minor third and a major chord on top. If you're thinking about this in terms of chord formulas, major is 4 plus 3, minor is 3 plus 4. What are these notes? Either in terms of major minor triads or major minor thirds, or in terms of counting half steps, what's the distance between B to D and then D to F?
It's 2 minor thirds.
2 minor thirds. And how would that be represented as a chord formula?
Root plus 3 plus 3.
Exactly. As you turn it into a fully diminished chord, you add a major fourth, excuse me, add a major third, or you add a 4. So that's how you finish it off. Minor third, major third, because that's how it falls naturally in the key of C. This is called a half diminished. I know that's confusing, that this is like the normal one that appears on the C major, but it's called half diminished because there's an even more diminished one we'll look at in a moment. But again, it's, as Kylie said, it's 2 minor thirds, and then we add a major third, or it's root plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. Another way to figure it out, just like for figuring out the dominant chord, you can say, okay, well, what is this the fifth of? You can always just say, well, what is this the seventh of? So if you're trying to figure out F sharp half diminished, and half diminished is represented by a little degree sign with a line through it. I don't want to do that one. Let's do B. Little degree sign, line through it, 7. So that's a half diminished. Question you have to ask yourself, what is B the major seventh of? In which major scale is B the seventh note?
C.
C. And what's the key signature for C?
Nothing.
Nothing. So what are the notes of a B diminished, D of a B half diminished 7 chord? Anyone, doesn't have to be Austin, even though his picture is still up on my screen. Basically, you're just reading these notes because there's no key signature.
B, D, E, and G.
The first two are right.
Oh, sorry. F,
B, D,
and
F, and
F and A.
B, D, F, and A. You got it. So to recap those three options, number one, start with your major chord, your 1, 3, 5, make it diminished, and then add a major third. So a major third higher. Or you can just think the seventh from a minor scale. You can say, what is this the seventh of, and use that key signature. Or you can do root plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. And now the final one that we'll talk about today is the fully diminished. So if this is how a half diminished is represented, this is a diminished, also called a full diminished or fully diminished. I've seen both. So what this means, and I think the chord formulas is the best way to represent this one, it's root plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. So it's just a bunch of minor thirds stacked on top of each other. Do one of you recognize the song that begins with that?
I Will Survive.
Yeah, there you go. I think it's actually on G sharp though. Yeah. Whatever goes through and in. How's it go? And actually, that'll be a good exercise. We're going to do that one next. Thank you for calling it out. So yes, this is fully diminished. It's just a bunch of minor thirds stacked on top of each other. This does not occur naturally in a major scale. It only occurs in a harmonic minor scale. You don't have to remember that part. I just say that to make you think that you're not going to find it if you just try starting on different pitches of a major scale. So a fully diminished is all minor thirds stacked on top of each other. So to incorporate I Will Survive with these topics we're discussing, because I think I Will Survive is good for one specific reason. It's not just that it sounds, it begins with a diminished chord. That's not reason enough on its own. But it's because if you look at the chords, A minor, D minor, G minor, C minor, F minor, or sorry, they're not all minor. I don't know why I'm saying minor for all of these. A minor, D minor, G7, C major 7, F major 7, B flat half diminished, E7 sus4. If you go through here, I'm following the circle of fifths. If you had your circle of fifths out, I'm changing between major and minor, but that's the order that they go. A, D, G, C, F, B, E. So this is called a circle of fifths chord progression. Other songs use this too. Fly Me to the Moon by Frank Sinatra is a circle of fifths chord progression. Every chord is going up to its fifth. So you can think about this as going either way. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. These ones are actually going backward through the circle of fifths, going counterclockwise, that is. But Autumn Leaves is another one. So anytime you see this, it's called a circle of fifths chord progression. Anyway, let's spell these chords. Actually, I'm going to give you guys the choice. Should I call out the chords and have you spell them, or should I play them and you guys have to figure out what chord it is? First one to talk wins.
How about you play them?
Okay. Decisive. So here's the first chord. These are all going to be seventh chords. I'm not going to play a fully diminished. So you know that every chord is either major 7, minor 7, dominant 7, or half diminished. First thing you want to figure out is the seventh a half step or a whole step away. If it's a half step, you know right away it's a major 7. If it's a whole step, you then look to the third. If the third comes from the major scale, it's a dominant 7th. If the third comes from the minor scale, it's a minor 7th. So, with all that as a refresher, what chord am I playing?
It's a minor 7th.
An A minor 7. Yep. Next chord.
D minor 7th.
Good.
Major 7th.
Not major 7th. The triad is major, but for major 7th, the 7th would have to be a half step lower than the root, and this is a whole step. So what does that make it?
Oh, so minor 7th. No.
The other one.
Now I'm confusing myself.
It's a dominant 7th because we know it's not major 7 because the 7th is a whole step lower, but it still has the major 3rd. So that's what makes it dominant. The 7th is a whole step lower, but it still has a major 3rd. So this is G7. Okay. Next one. Caleb, why don't you take a second stab? We're going to give you, this is your chance for redemption.
That's a major 7th.
That's a major 7th. Okay. The next one.
It's another major 7.
Yep. Now this one's different. You should hear that. It should sound different than the other chords because it's a quality that I haven't played so far.
D half diminished 7th.
D half diminished 7. Yep. And the last one, this is kind of a curveball. Bonus points to anyone who can get it. It's not one of the ones I've talked about today. Although this is. So we'll start with this one. Pretend that A flat is a G sharp. What chord is this?
That's a dominant 7th. E. E dominant.
Yes. Good. So anyone? What is this chord then? We haven't talked about this. I just don't know if anyone knows on their own.
Augmented 7th.
No, you're on the right track. It's some type of alteration. It's actually a sus4. We'll talk about that when we get to suspensions. But anyway, so it's A minor 7, D minor 7, G dominant 7, C major 7, F major 7, B half diminished, E sus4, E major. And if you start that off with, now here's your chance to do the fully diminished at the very beginning. Right there. So now you can all go play I Will Survive. And again, what's the next chord? Something like that, right? Or
That's what I was hearing.
again, it's the exact same chord progression. And we could do Autumn Leaves. If we were to really sit and think about it, we could probably come up with, dozens of songs that follow this really common chord progression. Again, call it circle of fifths chord progression. What you do is you just go left or right, usually left, but sometimes right. You go left in the circle of fifths, but then you match the chords to the key. So what I mean by that is going through this circle of fifths to the left would give us the notes that I just played. A, D, G, C, F, B, E. E's a little special. But for the first ones, then you go back to this thing we talked about last week. 1 is major, 2 is minor, 3 is minor, 4 is major, 5 is major, 6 is minor, 7 is diminished. Now we add the 7th to this. Major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, regular 7, just a diminished or dominant 7, minor 7, and missed it, half diminished 7. and C is the root. So with that in mind, what is A? Which scale degree in the key of C is A? C, D, E, F, G, A. How many was that?
6.
6. So it's the 6th, and we can see down here that the 6 is a minor 7. Which scale degree in the key of C is D?
Second.
Second. So that's another minor 7. So D minor 7. Which scale degree is G?
Dominant.
Dominant. So it's just the 7. Dominant 7. Which scale degree is C in the key of C? This one isn't a trick.
First.
It's the 1. Yeah. So major 7. What scale degree is F?
The 4th.
4th. So it's another major 7. And what scale degree is B?
It's at the 7th.
7th. So it's half diminished. And E, we did something special here. We'll get into that later because it's pulling from. Just forget I said the last part. Anyway, those are the chords diatonically in this key. All right. So that is the main content. So now with our last few minutes together, let's look at the exercises and figure out which ones you're not going to do. So if you could please have these, actually, oh, I forget they're different. Okay, so this is what we're going to do this week. To keep everything fair and the same, I'm going to upload the exercises to our course site, and I'm going to draw a line through the ones I don't want you to do. So basically, I'll tell you my logic here. I want to give you a couple of half diminished and fully diminished chords, but I'm going to scratch out most of them because I want you to focus on major 7, minor 7, and dominant 7 because 95% of the chords you'll see, probably higher than that, will be those main 3. So that's what I'm going to do. If you were working ahead and you already did the exercises, email me and then you can just submit what you've already done. But assuming you haven't started yet, I'm going to send you the version from the second edition, and I'm already going to scratch out the ones that you don't need to do. But just talking through it, section 1, you will need to look at a 7th chord, and they're all in root position, and you'll figure out what the 7th chord is. So, for example, the first one, it's A, C, G, and E. So you would write A minor 7. The second one is E, G sharp, B, D sharp. So you'd write E major 7. You would just go through like that. Section 2 says, given the root name and quality, correctly notate the following 7th chords. So it says D minor 7th. So you would write out D, F, A, C. And the next one says C minor 7th. So you would write out C, E flat, G, B flat. Section 3 says notate 7th chords when given the root pitch and quality. So section 3 is the same as section 2. The only difference is section 2 just gives you the letter, and section 3 gives you the note on the staff. So you have to know what the note on the staff is. For this next section, section 3, we talked about 3. Okay, so 4, given the root, 3rd, 5th, or 7th. Yeah, I don't like that one. We're going to skip 4. I'm not trying to make you all suffer. So the ones that are just like ridiculously hard for the sake of torturing you, we'll skip. Section 5, identify the notated 7th chord. That one we will do. So no, we won't. That's basically number 1, but they're inverted. Section 6, notate the 7th chords when given the root, quality, and inversion. Nope. And section 7, fill out the missing sections of the chart with the correct terminology or notation of chord. For chords with no notation, given in the final column, choose any pitch for the root. Sure. It's kind of a weird exercise, but why not? And that's it. So, in our final 3 minutes, who has a question or a comment? All right. Actually, I have something to say in our final 3 minutes. Some of you may have already seen this. It's posted on our course site, but your only paper for this class, the instructions are on there. It is, in my opinion, very short, and it's 1,000 words. So basically, you have about 2.5 weeks. This is due, I think, 3 weeks from this Sunday, November 8th. You will read this book. Some of you may have already started last week, like we talked about, and you will write a very short, approximately 2-ish page paper in 1,000 words. And you will have an introduction. In the second paragraph, you will summarize the book. The book is showing you ways that you can, be a better musician in terms of how you think about things. In the third paragraph, you will write about how you can apply some of the things the author talks about in preparing for music. So this is things like rehearsing, learning songs, anything like that. In the fourth paragraph, you'll talk about how you can apply what he says to actually performing music. And then in the fifth paragraph, it's just a conclusion. This will all be in Turabian. How many of you have written in Turabian before? How many of you have heard of Turabian before? One person? I can't see Austin. Austin, have you heard of? Oh, I guess you must have from the last class. So many of you are probably irritated with life that we have Turabian and Chicago and MLA and APA. Do any of you know why there are so many and why certain classes ask you to use one over the other?
Don't some of them just kind of fit different writing styles better, so it's easier to comprehend?
Yeah, exactly. And it's specifically about the discipline that you're studying. So for example, the sciences always use APA because you have these in-text citations where it tells you exactly the author, the article, the year it was published. Because in the sciences, that's the most important thing. Where are you getting this information? If your information is coming from a bad source, then your argument is invalid and I'm not going to keep reading. In music and in history and in business, the sources are important, but they're not as important. So they just get a little footnote. You have a number, and then at the bottom, if you want to see where they got this idea, you can go back and read it. So Turabian, which is basically like Chicago Light, it's a version of Chicago that's just easier and watered down for students, not for people publishing magazines or books. Um, Everything is in a footnote, and that's for, again, music, business, history, and worship. MLA is more for the humanities. It's also sort of a generally easy one to write with, so a lot of high school students and underclassmen do it in college. And then APA is for the sciences. The instructions are on Sakai. Again, you have 2.5 weeks. There are also 2 resources to help you. I recorded a video that talks you through writing in Turabian. And for those of you like Kylie, who is a worship major, you will have to do a lot more Turabian, especially if you go into grad school. So there's a video talking you through it, and I included a sample paper as a Word doc. Download the sample paper and plug your stuff into that. You don't have to make a file from scratch. Use that as a template. Okay, that's all I have for you. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you next Wednesday. Okay, bye everyone.